Welcome back. So today we're going to be discussing our second event reward from the current event. The 79th Infantry Regiment of the 116th Panzer Division. Per their description, they were formed in the fall of 1940 on the basis of the 16th Infantry Division and were based in Westphalia. In 1942, they took part in the attack on Stalingrad, where it was destroyed, and in 43, they were reformed and transferred to Italy to defend against the Allies. Once again, they were transferred to the Eastern Front in November. So, what are we getting, and what is the highlight of this event squad? Well, you are getting a 4-man squad. We'll go over the squad composition in a moment, but the main highlight of this event reward is the sdkfz 251x9. This is a vehicle that I have highly anticipated, and we'll get into it. Looking at the squad itself, it's basically the mirror of the Allied squad, in that you have up to 2 medics, up to 2 machine gunners, up to 1 AT soldier, and 1 mandatory driver. So, that gives them a bit of versatility. I have run them at BR3, 4, and 5. Well, I ran them with BR2 kit, but they ran at BR3. I ran them at BR3 and I ran them at BR5. That's more accurate to say. And in all 3 instances, I ran them with 2 medics, 1 AT soldier, and a driver. I don't think that's the only way you can run them, though. Depending on the BR that you play at, you have access to different options. And I guess this is probably where we should cover the big elephant in the room. This is not a BR2 half-track. And to be entirely honest, that actually annoys the shit out of me. This should not be BR3. So, I think what they thought when they made this squad was, it has a gun, it's scary, it should be BR3. Here's the issue. Things that are BR3 have to see BR5. This is a thin-skinned, open-topped, immobile vehicle with a gun that is hull-locked and can't turn because it doesn't have a turret, okay? Now, if this was, say, a pack wagon, those of you who've played War Thunder know the pack wagon. It's basically a Puma, but it's got a Pack 40. It's Nightmare on wheels. It's super mobile. If it got the side of most of the vehicles in this game, it would kill them. And because of how mobile it is, it probably could get the side. Sure, it's hull locked, sure, it's thin skinned, but the thing is, it can deal with other vehicles. And there's the crux of the issue. The short-barreled 75mm howitzer, which is very common amongst BR2 German tanks, is an excellent gun at BR2. Some of them get access to heat, and that makes them play up a little bit better than their counterparts that get APCBC and HE, and sometimes smoke. This tank, well, it's not a tank, it's a half-track with a gun, this infantry fighting vehicle, if you will, does not get heat. It gets APCBC, it gets HE, and it gets smoke. And, you know, the shells are about evenly divided between the 3 sets. It's cool that it gets smoke for an infantry support perspective. And amongst the people in the Milsim community, I'm sure this will be a very valuable asset. But for those of us who play the base game and are stuck with normal matchmaking, honestly, this is disappointing. If you compare this in a vacuum, only to other half-tracks, sure, it's got the most powerful gun. It's got the most powerful gun on arguably the worst of the half-track chassis, but it's got the best gun. But I think the gun is misleading. In that, yes, you have the gun off of a tank, and yes, if you're in the right position, where you don't have to maneuver, and the enemy's right in front of you, it can be very powerful against infantry. The problem here lies in the fact that the gun on this struggles to penetrate other tanks at BR2. And you're putting it at BR3, where you're regularly going to play up to BR5. So, effectively, you could just take the AP shell away, and I would have the same vehicle. Now, I know. BR3 can play down, you can get lucky. And if you're an absolute degenerate, which I am not, you can leave every BR5 game you get into, and basically force yourself to play in BR1, 2, and 3 games. That is an option that's available to you. And, admittedly, this is mostly a side effect of the terrible matchmaking brackets that we've had since the merge, that 3.5 months later have still not been fit. Well, maybe not 3 now, it's like 3 months. I think the merge was right at the end of November, so I don't know, 3.5 months. Anyway, the point is, we've been stuck with this shit for a long time. We still have BR3 seeing BR5. If BR3 saw BR2, 3, and 4, that'd be great. If BR3 saw BR4, this gun would underperform, but it would be more okay than where it is right now. See, here's the issue. This is the same half-track that the premium squad gets, but it's got a gun put on top of it, basically. It's got like a little superstructure with a gun in it. The normal German half-track with the premium squad is terrible. It is by far the worst half-track in the game. The American one that the Russians use, it's very mobile. It's also got a decent gun on it. The Japanese one does surprisingly well in rough terrain, going through bamboo over hills and whatnot. The one that the Americans just got, it's super zippy. It's honestly a pretty good tank. As one of you in my comments put, it's like a little gremlin. I love that, by the way. It is a little gremlin. You're right, and that is awesome. I love that take. All of the trucks are more mobile. Now, they don't have guns, but compared to the normal half-tracks, that the normal premium ones that get machine guns, the gun's pointless, so who cares? Having the cannon on this does not give it enough power to merit being BR3 and having to see BR5. Like, it's a gun that, against infantry, it's good at BR2. Against anything that's not infantry, it's bad at BR2. And you're putting it on a vehicle with 15 mils of armor on the front, and half that everywhere else. A vehicle that is slow, that has bad acceleration, and it has no turret. We already don't really play the Stugs. One of the Stugs gets this gun. Do you ever see anybody play it? Of course not, because it's hull locked, but at least it has armor. This doesn't even have armor. You're open-topped. People can shoot you out of it while you're trying to aim your gun. And you're so thin-skinned that AT rifles can go through you while you're trying to aim your gun. And somehow that merits being BR3. This is a vehicle that... I know I sound annoyed, and I'm probably ranting on about this way longer than I should, but this is a vehicle that I was really looking forward to. At BR2, this thing would have been so much fun. And if BR3 only saw BR2, this thing would be awesome. If BR3 only saw BR3 and 4, it would still be pretty good. But as it is, this thing sees every BR in the game, depending on what you equip it with and what lineup to put it on. And that kind of blows. So, okay, let's get into specifics. You have the 75mm K51 L24 cannon, you have 38 pieces of ammo divided by 3 rounds, APCBC, HE, and smoke. The HE does pretty well dealing with infantry, and HE is really the only thing you should ever load in this. Realistically, what they should have given it is like 30 rounds of HE and 3 rounds of smoke and 5 rounds of AP. That would have been a very good loadout for this, but it pretty much splits its ammo evenly. I think it's like 10 rounds of smoke and the rest is divided between the other two, but you get the point. The armor is 15886, and that is for the front, side, back, and the bottom and top. Now, the top is 8, the bottom is 6. Don't ask me where the top armor is, they probably just mean the engine cover on the front, because this is an open-topped vehicle. Your driver is not exposed, they have a little itty-bitty vision slit, and everything is completely buttoned up, but if you get on top of it, you can definitely hit him. This thing is vulnerable to being lit on fire. Admittedly, if it gets hit with like a Panzerfaust or tank shell, there's a decent chance that you survive and get to dismount. The vehicle will probably be fucked though, but that's not unique amongst APCs. Most of them, even the trucks, can survive getting hit. Most of the time you'll be able to dismount. Most of the time, most of your crew will survive. A lot of the time you'll lose like 2 or 3, sometimes half, depends on the size of the squad and what vehicle you're in. The mobility is listed at 56 kilometers an hour, but I need to actually look at this speedometer when I drive 56 in any of the German half-tracks. They all feel really sluggish, they all feel really slow. None of them deal with hills well or rubble, and they can't cross trenches despite how long they are. They're like a hearse, but somehow they can't cross trenches. It's got an MG42 on the roof. It overheats incredibly quickly, so it may as well not be there. Yeah, so the main draw to this is the gun. It does fine if you're parked on a long straight approach that infantry need to run down and tanks can't get down. That's really the main use for this. So, my other gripe with this, as you all know, is that this is a 4-man squad. This is... and I'm gonna try not to go into my whole tirade about this, but all of the tech tree squads are 6-man squads, all of the premium squads are 6-man squads, all of the paratrooper squads, premium, event, and, well, that's it, there's no tech tree paratrooper squads, so get fucked if you missed the events and you don't want to spend money. But all of those event squads last year were exactly the same as their tech tree counterpart. They were all 6-man paratrooper squads, they all jump out of a plane, they can all show up anywhere within like 20 seconds, they all get boxed, the box gets 4 options: assault, AT, recon, and mortar engineer. All of them got that. Every single one. No matter what BR they're at. So here we are in 2024, and we have tech tree APCs, we have premium APCs, and we have event APCs. The tech tree ones are 6-man squads. They come in trucks. They're honestly pretty awesome. The premium ones are 6-man squads. They're amongst the best premium squads in the game. Honestly, it has nothing to do with the vehicle they come in. Most of their vehicles are completely forgettable. But for a premium squad, they have the best squad composition in the game, because they actually get specialists. It's amazing. I love them. 10 out of 10. Would get one for any nation. And here we have the event squads. They are not 6-man squads. They do get decent access to specialists, and they tried to make them special by giving them guns. So they basically took the most forgettable aspect of these vehicles, probably the most irrelevant aspect of these vehicles, because they're all tin cans that get blown up and act like points pinatas anyway, and they doubled down on that. And you know what? It's really, really cool. But the problem is, they put this thing at BR3. This thing could have actually been good at BR2. Even with a 4-man squad, it could have been good at BR2. Because unlike every single APC in the game right now, at BR2, you would have actually stayed in this half-track. There's no good reason to sit in any of the other half-tracks in the game. I always try to come up with situations where you would, because maybe you want to use it as a machine gun emplacement. But in almost every case with the half-tracks, you're better off just parking it somewhere, using it as a spawn point, and going and fighting on foot. And at BR3, 4, and 5, well, at BR4 and 5, that's what you probably should be doing with this thing. I've sat there and tried to use it as an IFV multiple times now. At BR3, at BR5, and most of the time it just gets blown up. You sometimes get a few shells off. I had a good run in a Conquest game where I got to drive it around and shoot at people, mostly because I was shooting people like as they were running over hills, and they just didn't get the chance to shoot at me, and they didn't really see me. But it's not a tank. It doesn't have the armor of a tank. It doesn't have the sustainability of a tank. It's open-topped. It's easy to kill. If you look at it and sneeze too hard, it goes kaboom. And everybody inside dies with it. You know, not always. Like I said before, usually like half the squad, maybe all 4 guys if you're lucky, will survive it getting hit. But I've also had lots of instances where this thing just got hit by a tank or by a bomb, like an HE shell from a tank or by a bomb, and it's just gone. Everybody's dead, the whole vehicle's gone. So I don't like that it's a 4-man squad, because 4-man squads just don't have the sustainability. If the vehicle gets hit, you can pretty handedly assume you're losing at least one guy. If people shoot at you while you're driving to the front, there's a decent chance you're going to lose somebody. Now, your guys are covered up a little bit better in this half-track. Assume that you park it somewhere and walk the rest of the way on foot. The first time you make contact with the enemy, half your squad's probably dead because you're a 4-man squad. It's cool in theory. They have a lot of versatility because of the different specialist options that they have. I'm just disappointed with them. I really am. So, let's get into it. Into what I equipped them with. At BR3, I was running them with 2 medics and an AT soldier. At BR3, though, you can make a compelling argument for swapping the medics for machine gunners, or running 1 machine gunner and 2 medics, or 2 machine gunners and 1 medic. Yeah, all of the options for Germany at BR3 are viable. Now, looking at their guns at BR3, you have a lot of good options, but actually what I gave them were like MP40s and MP38s. I'm not sure exactly which, but they're effectively the same gun. But I like MP40s. I like them a lot. It used to be BR3, now it's BR2. It's phenomenal at BR2, it plays fine at BR3. Admittedly, if you want to min-max them at BR3, you're better off giving them Beretta M3842s or Beretta M1s, because it's basically an MP40 with 40 rounds, so it is, better. The MP35 is a fine choice, the ZK383 is a fine choice. Basically all the submachine guns at BR3 do just fine. I don't really have a strong preference. I like having the extra ammo in the M3842 or in the Beretta M1. As far as light machine guns go, you don't have a ton of choices at BR3. I went with the MG34. You could do the ZB26. I think it's personal preference. The ZB26 is probably going to be more mobile, but I prefer the MG34. It gets 50 round belts, it's got a comfortable fire rate, you really can't go wrong with it. It is more of a sedentary, more defensive light machine gun, where the ZB is going to be a little bit more assault oriented, but I think the MG34 is fine in both roles. And as far as AT weapons, you really only have one choice, and that's the Panzerfaust 60. But coming in with 180 mils of penetration, as long as you can hit the target, you can kill the target. There's really nothing that you're ever going to see that you can't kill with that. So I think the AT soldier is pretty much always worth running. But like I said, you can make an argument for dropping him if you're not too worried about tanks. And, okay, so you can make the argument that if you're playing at BR3, and it is in fact BR3 and no higher, so you're playing BR1, 2, 3, you can make the argument to drop the AT soldier and depend on the gun on the sdkfz 251x9, because some of the BR2 tanks, if you shoot them in the right places from the front, you can kill them with this gun. A lot of the BR1 tanks you can go through. Some of the BR2 and so tanks you can go through. The BR3 tanks, if you get them from the side, you can go through them. And maybe if you get the right place on the front, you might be able to go through. It really kind of just depends. So you can make an argument to drop the AT soldier in that case. But unless you're playing like an absolute degen and quitting every BR5 game, realistically you're going to see stuff that isn't BR1, 2, and 3. And so I think it's worth keeping the AT soldier on there. Which is why I also started playing this at BR5. I figured if I'm playing at BR3, yeah, sometimes I'm going to play down and it'll be nice. Sometimes I'll play up and I can play up just fine. It's not a big deal. But, I like BR5 Germany. Let's just throw BR5 stuff on the squad since we're seeing BR5 anyway. I mean, one of my BR3 games I played in Berlin, so, you know, it is what it is. So, when I moved them up, you have a lot of very good options. I gave them the captured PPSH 41s, the MP717R. For those of you that didn't play in Stalingrad back in the day and don't have access to them, worry not, you have other wonderful choices. At BR4, the Kirli is an awesome gun. Actually, is the Kirli BR4? It feels like it should be, but it probably isn't. I'm probably talking on my ass. No, the Kirli's BR5 for some reason. Okay, so at BR5, the Kirli, or any of the assault rifles, the MP43 or the STG-44 would be my go-to. Really depends on what fire rate you want. I like the STG, it's got more fire rate, but admittedly, having less fire rate probably wouldn't be a bad thing. I honestly sometimes think that I would play better if I was using the MP43 just because it's got less fire rate and it wastes less ammo. So those would be my first two choices. Looking at BR4, there's the Beretta at BR4. I really do feel like the Kirli should be BR4, but it is what it is. So if you have the PPSHs, I would use them. If you don't have the PPSHs, then on the medics you can use the Sturmgewehrs. You, for whatever reason, can't give drivers assault rifles. Don't ask me why. They can take some machine guns just fine, but oh no, the assault rifle's just a little bit too big for their tiny little hands. Beyond that, I don't know, like, you can run any of the German submachine guns, they do fine, but the Kirli, if you don't have any of the assault rifles, would be my choice, but if you have the assault rifles, I would go with those. Obviously, give them pistols. Mine have Walther PPKs, they're cheap. Any pistol is better than no pistol. I gave them all large ammo pouches. I gave them all AP mines, flasks, explosive packs, and med kits. If you run a light machine gun at this BR, you once again have a number of choices. The MG15, the MG42, and the MG34 with Patronen Trommel. It really just comes down to which one's your favorite. I think the MG34 with Patronen Trommel is probably the most balanced of them. It's got the most controllable fire rate, and the ammo feels more efficient and like it'll go further for you. But the MG42 is iconic, and the MG15 is an absolute buzzsaw. So, it's up to you. As far as the AT soldier, I give him an FG42 too, and a Panzerfaust 100, but you could take an Offenrohr. Again, it's personal preference. They're basically side grades to each other. They both have more than enough pen to go through anything that you'll see, and the Offenrohr is arguably more user-friendly, but it is a more cumbersome piece of equipment where you have to walk if you have it out. I like being able to run, and a lot of the tanks I engage are pretty close, so the Panzerfaust isn't really an issue for me. On top of that, if you do go with the Offenrohr, you get a sick gas mask, so you get to look really cool. That is basically it for their outfitting. They do have medics, which is arguably a downgrade over an assaulter. I don't mind having medics though, I like having med boxes. You could swap out your machine gunners for machine gunner 3s, so I believe it comes with a machine gunner 2. Other than that, that's basically it on equipment. Tactically speaking, this is probably the most battle bus of all of the half-tracks. You absolutely can use it as your own little pocket assault vehicle, just know that it's not going to last very long. So, I still think that, like every other half-track, the best use for it is to park it somewhere out of sight and use it as a spawn point. That being said, it can be fun to use it as an assault vehicle, and it can be fun to just sit in it and treat it like a fire support vehicle. In both of those cases, in my experience, it gets blown up very quickly. So, do with that as you will. Was this worth grinding? The grind for this event didn't feel that bad for me, and at the end of the day, I'm happy that I have it, and I have hope that in the future, we're going to see changes to the matchmaking system, and if we do, I think that the value of this vehicle is going to shoot up tremendously. So, I think it was worth getting for the future. As of right now, if you don't have the premium ones and you want to run a second APC, of course it's worth it. I will most likely continue to have it on my lineup because it's part of my little Panzer army, and I like it. So basically, my BR5 lineup, for context, is a Panzer 2, or not a Panzer, a Tiger 2H, a JU-188A2, a BF-109G10, paratroopers, the sdkfz by 1 premium half-track, dudes with their fancy spotted camo, the Tech Tree sdkfz 7 with their fancy spotted camo, these guys also with their fancy spotted camo. See, there's a theme here. An assault squad, all STGs, fancy spotted camo, second one, same setup, and then the premium MG42 early squad. That's just my current lineup. They're basically my little Panzer Grenadier army. I could drop stuff and put on more tanks, or I could put on some more variety. I actually have a lineup that I put together that's all like Fallschirmjäger themed. But with this edition, I effectively have my little Panzer army put together, and I don't know, I like that. That's cool to me. So, let me know what you think of the squad. Compared to the other two half-tracks, I honestly don't feel like I gained much. The sdkfz 7 is not particularly mobile, and okay, it has no armor, but I don't know, it doesn't feel particularly different to use than any of the other trucks or half-tracks to me. And compared to the sdkfz 251x1, it's literally the same vehicle with a gun on top. We talked about that earlier. I would prefer to have the squad lineup from the tech tree sdkfz 7 on this vehicle, and I would prefer it be at BR2. If I could only choose between those two, I would put it at BR2 though. Even though normally I prefer to have larger squads than this because, you know, staying power on defending points, body weight on taking points, so on and so forth. But yeah, like I said, let me know down below. Do you like the squad? How have they performed for you? I feel like I've spent a lot of time dead as these guys. And I know I've really been trying to get the gun to work for me. And I've gotten a decent set of kills with it, but to be honest, I feel like I've done better with the other two squads, because I'm running them all on this lineup. And I was running them all on the lineup at BR3 as well, because I wanted to compare them. And I feel like I just do better with the other squads, even though this one's got a gun on the half-track. So anyway, as per usual, get out there, kick ass, take names, and win your games!
Beschuss gesehen! Los, Leute! Diese Stellung verteidigen!
Der Gegner hat alle Kontrollpunkte erobert. Angriff!